Hey crew, it's Pitt and I am back with some more philosophy. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Friedrich Nietzsche. This is Thus Spake Zarathustra. We are in part 2. We are reading aloud. We are up to 38 scholars. I'm reading aloud and discussing as we go along. It is not the format for everybody, but some people seem to enjoy it, so you're welcome to tag along. But before we begin, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if you get lost in any terminology along the way, there are several playlists that will be linked up here. They are also in the box down below, along with the original source material, so that you can understand what I am talking about. I try to be clear when I go along, but sometimes I don't, and therefore we have the playlist link. With that being said, let us dive into and discuss 38 scholars. When I lay asleep, then did a sheep eat at the ivory wreath on my head. It ate, and said thereby, Zarathustra is no longer a scholar. It said this, and went away clumsily and proudly. A child told it to me. I like to lie here where the children play, beside the ruined wall, among thistles and red poppies. A scholar am I still to the children, and also to the thistles and red poppies. Innocent are they, even in their wickedness. But to the sheep I am no longer a scholar. So willeth my lot, blessings upon it. For this is the truth, I have departed from the house of scholars, and the doors have I also slammed behind me. Too long did my soul sit hungry at their table, not like them have I got the knack of investigating, as the knack of nut cracking. Freedom do I love, and the air over fresh soil. Rather would I sleep in ox-skins than on their honors and dignities. I am too hot and scorched with mine own thought. Often it is ready to take away my breath. Then have I to go into the open air and away from all dusty rooms. But they sit, cool, in the shade. They want in everything to be merely spectators, and they avoid sitting where the sun burneth on the steps. Like those who stand in the street and gape at the passer-by, thus do they also wait and gape at the thoughts which others have thought. Should one lay hold of them, then do they raise a dust like flour sacks, and involuntarily. But who would divine that their dust came from corn, and from the yellow delight of the summer fields? When they give themselves out as the wise, then do their petty sayings and truths chill me. In their wisdom there is often an odor, as if it came from the swamp, and verily, I have even heard the frog croak in it. Clever are they have dexterous fingers. What doth my simplicity pretend to besides their multiplicity? All threading and knitting and weaving do their fingers understand. Thus do they make the hose of the spirit. Good clockworks are they. Only be careful to wind them up properly. Then do they indicate the hour without mistake, and make a modest noise thereby. Like millstones do they work, and like pestles. Throw only seed corn unto them. They know well how to grind corn small, and make white dust out of it. They keep a sharp eye on one another, and do not trust each other the best. Ingenious in little artifices, they wait for those whose knowledge walketh on lame feet. Like spiders do they wait. I saw them always prepare their poison with precaution, and always did they put glass gloves on their fingers in doing so. They also know how to play with false dice, and so eagerly did I find them playing that they perspired thereby. We are alien to each other, and their virtues are even more repugnant to my taste than their falsehoods and false dice. And when I lived with them, then did I live above them, therefore did they take a dislike to me. They want to hear nothing of anyone walking above their heads, and so they put woods and earth and rubbish betwixt me and their heads. Thus did they deafen the sound of my tread, and least have I hitherto been heard by the most learned. All mankind's faults and weaknesses did they put betwixt themselves and me. They call it false ceiling in their houses. But, nevertheless, I walk with my thoughts above their heads, and even should I walk on mine own errors, still would I be above them in their heads. For men are not equal. So speaketh justice, and what I will, they may not will. Thus Spake Zarathustra. And again, we have talked before, right? We did the prequel where his sister was introducing what happened in his life. And at this point in his life was when his friends had isolated him, right? He had suffered great disappointment from his friends. That was probably something to do with academia. From gathering from this, he was probably given a position of at least research, maybe even instruction. And then he had did it diligently and intelligently, and there is nothing that the educators like less than intelligence. They say they do. They scream that they want the truth, but if you present anything outside of their doxy, you're wrong, and they refuse to hear it. And that's what he's talking about. I was trying to enlighten, and yet no one wants the light, and so I go for me out into the darkness. That's what he's saying, right? I have tried, but they don't listen. I have seeked, and they don't say. They give me the laurels, and they take them away. If you are trying to find truth, almost everyone will be arrayed against you, especially the people who are personal in your life, because people do not like seeing you change. It reminds them that they are not. And that is something that provokes jealousy. It is something that provokes anger, and it's something that you need to be aware of. You should definitely be on the path to truth. You should definitely be seeking correctness in everything you do. But if you do that, everybody else is going to fall away, and you know that as well as I do. Go to work and try to do things by procedure. Go to work and try to follow the rules and see what happens with your coworkers. I can speak with some authority on this. I have worked various numbers of jobs, and in every single one of them, there was the book way to do it, and then there was the way we do it. It is the same in academia. It is the same in every profession, wherever, because man's nature does not change. Only man can change his nature, and that is an individual choice. And most people don't make that choice. You should. I have. Hopefully, other people will. But until more people do, it is a lonely road. And that is fine. 39. Poets. Since I have known the body better, said Zarathustra to one of his disciples, the spirit hath only been to me symbolically spirit, and all the imperishable, that is also but a simile. I don't agree. So have I heard thee say once before, answered the disciple, but then thou addest, but the poets lie too much. What didst thou say that the poets lie too much? Why? Said Zarathustra. Thou askest why? I do not belong to those who may be asked after their why. Is my experience but of yesterday? It is long ago that I experienced the reasons for mine opinions. Should I not have to be a cask of memory if I also wanted to have my reasons with me? It is already too much for me even to retain my opinions, and many a bird flieth away. And sometimes also do I find a fugitive creature in my dovecote, which is alien to me, and trembleth when I lay my hand upon it. But what did Zarathustra once say unto thee? That the poets lie too much? But Zarathustra also is a poet. Believest thou that he there spake the truth? Why dost thou believe it? The disciple answered, I believe in Zarathustra. But Zarathustra shook his head and smiled. Belief doth not sanctify me, said he, least of all the belief in myself. But granting that someone did say in all seriousness that the poets lie too much, he was right. We do lie too much. We also know too little and are bad learners, so we are obliged to lie. And which of us poets hath not adulterated his wine? Many a poisonous hotchpotch hath evolved in our cellars. Many an indescribable thing hath therein done. And because we know little, therefore are we pleased from the heart with the poor in spirit, especially when they are young women. And even of those things are we desirous which old women tell one another in the evening. This do we call the eternally feminine in us. And as if there were a special secret access to knowledge which choketh up for those who learn anything, so do we believe in the people and in their wisdom. This, however, do all poets believe, that whoever pricketh up his ears when lying in the grass or on lonely slopes, learneth something of the things that are betwixt heaven and earth. And if there come unto them tender emotions, then do the poets always think that nature herself is in love with them, and that she stealeth to their ear to whisper secrets into it, and amorous flatteries. Of this do they plume and pride themselves before all mortals. Ha! There are so many things between heaven and earth of which only the poets have dreamed, and especially above the heavens, for all gods are poet symbolizations, poet sophistications. Verily, ever are we drawn aloft, that is, to the realm of the clouds. On these do we set our gaudy puppets, and then call them gods and supermen. Are not they light enough for those chairs, all these gods and supermen? Ah, how I am weary of all the inadequate that is insisted on as actual. Ah, how am I weary of the poets. When Zarathustra so spake, his disciple resented it, but was silent. And Zarathustra also was silent, and his eye directed itself inwardly, as if it gazed into the far distance. At last he sighed and drew breath. I am of today and heretofore, said he thereupon, but something is in me that is of the morrow, and of the day following, and the hereafter. I became weary of the poets of the old and of the new. Superficial are they all unto me, and shallow seas. They did not think sufficiently into the depth before their feeling did not reach to the bottom. Some sensation of voluptuousness and some sensation of tedium, these have as yet been their best contemplation. Ghost breathing and ghost whisking seemeth to me all the jingle jangling of their harps. What have they known hitherto of the fervor of tones? They are also not pure enough for me. They all muddle their water that it may seem deep, and fain would they thereby prove themselves reconcilers, but mediaries and mixers are they unto me, and half and impure. I cast indeed my net into their sea, and meant to catch good fish, but always did I draw up the head of some ancient god. Thus did the sea give a stone to the hungry one, and they themselves may well originate from the sea. Certainly one findeth pearls in them, thereby they are more like hard mollusks, and instead of a soul I have often found in them salt slime. They have learned from the sea also its vanity. Is not the sea the peacock of peacocks? Even before the ugliest of all buffaloes doth it spread out its tail, never doth it tire of its lace fan of silver and silk. Disdainfully doth the buffalo glance thereat, nigh into the sand with his soul, nigher still to the thicket, nighest, however, to the swamp. What is beauty and sea and peacock splendor to it? This parable I speak unto the poets. Verily, their spirit itself is the peacock of peacocks and a sea of vanity. Spectators, seeketh the spirit of the poet, should they even be buffaloes. But of the spirit became I weary, and I see the time coming when it will become weary of itself. Yea, changed have I seen the poets, and their glance turned towards themselves. Penitents of the spirit have I seen appearing. They grew out of the poets. Thus spoke Zarathustra. And this is one that doesn't seem to have the deeper meanings, right? This is poets lie, storytellers lie, and that is true. They make up fantastical tales, that is true, and you shouldn't believe all of them, that is true. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't dream. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be fantastical. It doesn't mean that you should not explore possibilities that are not of the mundane. You should. You should be exploring all of the various possibilities that you possibly can, and it does not mean that they are correct or true or real if you explore them. There can be things that you did not know were true, but it is possible that most of the fantastical things are actually just fantasy meant for you to enjoy, and that is perfectly fine. Don't take exception with it unless they are trying to pass it off as truth, and then take great exception with it. 40. Great events. There is an isle in the sea, not far from the happy isles of Zarathustra, on which a volcano ever smoketh, of which isle the people, and especially the old women amongst them, say that it is placed as a rock before the gate of the netherworld, but that through the volcano itself the narrow way leadeth downwards, which conduceth to this gate. Now, about the time that Zarathustra sojourned on the Happy Isles, it happened that a ship anchored at the isle on which standeth the Smoketh Mountain, and the crew went ashore to shoot rabbits. About the noontide hour, however, when the captain and his men were coming together again, they saw suddenly a man coming towards them through the air, and a voice said distinctly, "It is time, it is the highest time." But when the figure was nearest to them, it flew past quickly, however, like a shadow in the direction of the volcano. Then did they recognize with the greatest surprise that it was Zarathustra, for they had all seen him before, except the captain himself, and they loved him as the people love, in such wise that love and awe were combined in equal degree. "Behold," said the helmsman, "there goeth Zarathustra to hell." About the same time that these sailors landed on the Fire Isle, there was a rumor that Zarathustra had disappeared, and when his friends were asked about it, they said that he had gone aboard a ship by night, without saying where he was going. Thus there arose some uneasiness. After 3 days, however, there came the story of the ship's crew in addition to this uneasiness, and then did all the people say that the devil had taken Zarathustra. His disciples laughed, sure enough, at this talk, and one of them said even, "Sooner would I believe that Zarathustra hath taken the devil." But at the bottom of their hearts they were all full of anxiety and longing. So their joy was great when on the 5th day Zarathustra appeared amongst them. And this is the account of Zarathustra's interview with the fire dog. "The earth," said he, "hath a skin, and this skin hath diseases. One of these diseases, for example, is called man, and another of these diseases is called the fire dog. Concerning him men have greatly deceived themselves, and let themselves be deceived. To fathom this mystery did I go over the sea, and I have seen the truth naked, verily, barefooted up to the neck. Now do I know how it is concerning the fire dog, and likewise concerning all the spouting and subversive devils, of which not only old women are afraid. Up with thee, fire dog, out of thy depth, cried I, and confess how deep that depth is, whence cometh that which thou snortest up. Thou drinkest copiously at the sea, that doth thine embittered eloquence betray. In sooth, for a dog of the depth, thou takest thy nourishment too much from the surface. At the most, I regard thee as the ventriloquist of the earth, and ever, when I have heard subversive and spouting devils speak, I have found them like thee, embittered, mendacious, and shallow. Ye understand how to roar and obscure with ashes. Ye are the best braggarts, and have sufficiently learned the art of making dregs boil. Where ye are, there must always be dregs at hand, and so much that is spongy, hollow, and compressed, it wanteth to have freedom. Freedom, ye all roar most eagerly, but I have unlearned the belief in great events, when there is much roaring and smoke about them. And believe me, friend Hullabaloo, the greatest events are not our noisiest, but our stillest hours. Not around the inventors of new noise, but around the inventors of new values, doth the world revolve. Inaudibly it revolveth. And just own to it. Little had ever taken place when thy noise and smoke passed away. What if a city did become a mummy, and a statue lay in the mud? And this do I say also to the overthrowers of statues. It is certainly the greatest folly to throw salt into the sea, and statues into the mud. In the mud of your contempt lay the statue, but it is just its law, that out of contempt its life and living beauty grow again. With diviner features doth it now arise, seducing by its suffering, and verily, it will yet thank you for overthrowing it, ye subverters. This counsel, however, do I counsel to kings and churches, and to all that is weak with age or virtue. let yourselves be overthrown, that ye may come again to life, and that virtue may come to you. Thus spake I before the fire dog. Then did he interrupt me sullenly, and asked, Church, what is that? Church, answered I, that is a kind of state, and indeed the most mendacious. But remain quiet, thou dissembling dog. Thou surely know thine own species best. Like thyself, the state is a dissembling dog. Like thee doth it like to speak with smoke and roaring, to make believe, like thee, that it speaketh out of the heart of things. For it seeketh by all means to be the most important creature on earth, the state, and people think it so. When I had said this, the fire dog acted as if mad with envy. What? Cried he, the most important creature on earth, and people think it so? And so much vapor and terrible voices came out of his throat that I thought he would choke with vexation and envy. At last he became calmer, and his panting subsided. As soon, however, as he was quiet, I said laughingly, Thou art angry, fire dog, so I am in the right about thee, and that I may also maintain the right, hear the story of another fire dog. He speaketh actually out of the heart of the earth. Gold doth his breath exhale, and golden rain, and so doth his heart desire. What are ashes and smoke and hot dregs to him? Laughter flitteth from him like a variegated cloud, adverse is he to thy gargling and spewing and grips in the bowels. The gold, however, and the laughter, these doth he take out of the heart of the earth, for that thou mayest know of it, the heart of the earth is of gold. When the fire dog heard this, he could no longer endure, and listened to me. Abashed, he did draw in his tail, and said, Bow wow, in a cowed voice, and crept down into his cave. Thus told Zarathustra. His disciples, however, hardly listened to him, so great was their eagerness to tell him about the sailors, the rabbits, and the flying man. What am I to think of it, said Zarathustra? Am I indeed a ghost? But it may have been my shadow. Ye have surely heard something of the wanderer and his shadow. One thing, however, is certain. I must keep a tighter hold of it, otherwise it will spoil my reputation. And once more Zarathustra shook his head and wondered. What am I to think of it? Said he once more. Why did the ghost cry, It is time, it is the highest time? For what is it then, the highest time? Thus spake Zarathustra. And here we have him railing against the control systems. Now, I talk about the control systems all the time. The government, the state, is absolutely a control system. It is meant to keep you in order. We have laws and structures and things that are keeping you from doing what you want, because the base nature of man is violence and hurting, stealing, taking. That is the nature of man. Unless you are actively trying to overcome it, you are probably ruled by those passions. And so the state is one of those control mechanisms by which we control the actions of men. If you kill someone, we kill you. That is how that works, right? If you steal from someone, we imprison you. Religions, writ large, are indeed control systems. They are imperfect expressions of the will of God. Now, you don't have to believe in God. I do. I do in a very real, very fundamental way for a lot of different reasons that I explain in these playlists, but I do not believe in any of the control systems. I believe that the state is, at best, an inefficient use of our authority. Now, take that with the caveat that the current system here in the United States, while it is deeply flawed and has severe problems in the selection process, is actually the best designed one on the planet. The fact that we have autonomy in most of our daily activities is unique across the globe. Most of the other control systems hold a much tighter rein upon you. That includes all of the religious ones. I do not personally subject myself to the intermediaries. By that I mean, anyone trying to interfere between me and direct communication with God. I believe that God is the creator of all things. God is. God is me. God is you. He is the space between me and you, and He is the space between me and you. He is everything that you can see and everything that you can't. And so, therefore, any limitation that you place upon Him is too much. If you think that He is coming to judge you in a certain amount of years, it's too much. God, in my conception, is not that. But in the conception of all the control systems, He is. He's coming back vengefully to judge the earth in fire and brimstone. Or He's coming to punish the idolaters, or however you happen to care to think about that. All of that is a control system. God created us, and He created our nature, and none of us are God. We are all very tiny slivers, individualized of God, to have this experience here on earth. And the control systems that we use are mostly in place to limit you from the full potential of what you could do. Nietzsche did not believe in that full potential. He believed, from what I can understand, in man, that man could rise above, but he didn't believe in God the way that I do, or the way even that the control systems do. I'm sure he had his own spin on divinity, but it is not the standard by which everybody else lives, and it is definitely not by which I live. And so, I, too, am against the control systems. I think that there is no need for an intermediary between you and God Himself, and so I do my things where I talk about those things and how you can have purity in your life without the intervention of any of the control systems. You can go directly to God for all of the things that the control systems try to control. And so you can transcend those control systems. Does that mean that you're going to be able to separate yourself from the state? No. We have the state for a reason. There is a reason why we are governed. There is. You don't have to like that, but it's true. Just like taxation is a privilege and not theft. That you don't have to like it. That's true. Being able to pay somebody else to do the things that you don't like, that is a privilege. You're not mad that you're paying taxes. You're mad that your taxes are spent in the wrong manner. And that is an accountability issue that you are responsible for. All right. 41. The Soothsayer. And I saw a great sadness come over mankind. The best turned weary of their works. A doctrine appeared, and faith ran beside it. All is empty, all is alike, all hath been. And from all the hills there re-echoed, all is empty, all is alike, all hath been. To be sure, we have harvested, but why have all of our fruits become rotten and brown? What was it that fell last night from the evil moon? In vain was all our labor, poison hath our mind become. The evil eye hath singed yellow over fields and hearts. Arid have we all become, and fire falling upon us, then do we turn like dust to ashes. Yea, the fire itself have we made aweary. All our fountains have dried up, even the sea hath receded. All the ground tried to gape, but the depth will not swallow. Alas, where is there still a sea in which one could be drowned? So soundeth our plaint across shallow swamps. Verily, even for dying have we become too weary. Now do we keep awake and live on in sepulchres. Thus did Zarathustra hear a soothsayer speak, and the foreboding touched his heart and transformed him. Sorrowfully did he go about and wearily, and he became like unto those whom the soothsayer had spoken. Verily, said he unto his disciples, a little while, and there cometh the long twilight. Alas, how shall I preserve my light through it, that it may not smother in this sorrowfulness? To remoter worlds shall it be a light, and also to the remotest nights. Thus did Zarathustra go about grieved in his heart, and for 3 days he did not take any meat or drink. He had no rest and lost his speech. At last it came to pass that he fell into a deep sleep. His disciples, however, sat around him in long night watches, and waited anxiously to see if he would awake and speak again and recover from his affliction. And this is the discourse that Zarathustra spake when he awoke. His voice, however, came unto his disciples as from afar. Hear, I pray you, the dream that I dreamed, my friends, and help me to divine its meaning. A riddle is it still unto me, this dream. The meaning is hidden in it and encaged, and doth not yet fly above it on free pinions. All life had I renounced, so I dreamed. Night watchman and grave guardian had I become, aloft, in the lone mountain fortress of death. There did I guard his coffins, full stood out the musty vaults of those trophies of victory. Out of glass coffins did vanquished life gaze upon me. The odor of dust-covered into eternities did I breathe. Sultry and dust-covered lay my soul, and who could have aired his soul there? Brightness of midnight was ever around me, lonesomeness cowered beside her, and as a third, death-rattle stillness, the worst of my female friends. Keys did I carry, the rustiest of all keys, and I knew how to open with them the most creaking of all gates. Like a bitterly angry croaking ran the sound through the long corridors when the leaves of the gate opened. Ungraciously did this bird cry, unwillingly was it awakened. But more frightful even, and more heart-strangling was it, when it again became silent, and still all around, and I alone sat in that malignant silence. Thus did time pass with me, and slip by, if time there still was. What do I know thereof? But at last there happened that which awoke me. Thrice did their peals at the gate like thunders. Thrice did the vaults resound and howl again. Then did I go to the gate. Alpa, cried I, who carrieth his ashes into the mountain. Alpa, Alpa, who carrieth his ashes unto the mountain. And I pressed the key and pulled at the gate and exerted myself, but not a finger's breadth was it yet open. Then did a roaring wind tear the folds apart, whistling, whizzing, and piercing. It threw unto me a black coffin. And in the roaring and whistling and whizzing, the coffin burst up, and spouted out 1,000 peals of laughter, and 1,000 characters of children, angels, owls, fools, and child-sized butterflies laughed and mocked and roared at me. Fearfully was I terrified thereby. It prostrated me, and I cried with horror as I never cried before. But mine own crying awoke me, and I came to myself. Thus did Zarathustra relate his dream, and then was silent, for as yet he knew not the interpretation thereof. But the disciple, whom he loved most, arose quickly, seized Zarathustra's hand, and said, Thy life itself interpreteth unto us this dream, O Zarathustra. Art thou not thyself the wind with shrill whistling, which bursteth open the gates of the fortress of death? Art thou not thyself the coffin full of many-hued malices and angel characters of life? Verily, like 1,000 peals of children's laughter cometh Zarathustra into all sepulchres, laughing at those night watchmen and grave guardians and whoever else rattleth with sinister keys. With thy laughter wilt thou frighten and prostrate them, fainting and recovering will demonstrate thy power over them. And when the long twilight cometh and the mortal weariness, even then wilt thou not disappear from our firmament, thou advocate of life. New stars hast thou made us see, and new nocturnal glories. Verily, laughter itself hath spread out over us like a many-hued canopy. Now will children's laughter ever from coffins flow. Now will a strong wind ever come victoriously unto all mortal weariness. Of this thou art thyself the pledge and the prophet. Verily, they themselves didst thou dream, thine enemies. That was thy sorest dream. But as thou awokest from them, and camest to thyself, so shall they awaken from themselves, and come unto thee. Thus spake the disciple, and all others then thronged around Zarathustra, grasped him by the hand, and tried to persuade him to leave his bed and his sadness, and return unto them. Zarathustra, however, sat upright on his couch with an absent look. Like one returning from a long foreign sojourn, did he look upon his disciples and examine their features. But still he knew them not. When, however, they raised him and set him upon his feet, behold, all on a sudden his eye changed, and he understood everything that had happened, stroked his beard, and said in a strong voice, Well, this hath just its time, but see to it, my disciples, that we have a good repast, and without delay. Thus do I mean to make amends for bad dreams. The soothsayer, however, shall eat and drink at my side, and verily I will show him a sea in which he can drown himself. Thus spake Zarathustra. Then did he gaze long into the face of the disciple who had been the dream interpreter, and shook his head. And again, this is one that I don't have a whole lot to add to, right? This appears to be some dissatisfaction with his life. Again, at this point, this was when he was betrayed by his friends. This is when everything went south, when he again recused himself from life. And so it has probably got something to do with his dissatisfaction. Now, there is similes in dreams, right? There is journeys that we take. There are all kinds of things that happen when we sleep. Some of those you may have control over, and some you may not. And interpretation is always up to the interpreter and the whoever dreams it. And so I don't have a whole lot to read into this one. It just seems to be the same victim mentality that he was prone to. And we have 42, redemption. When Zarathustra went one day over the great bridge, then did the cripples and beggars surround him, and a hunchback spake thus unto him, Behold, Zarathustra, even the people learn from thee, and acquire faith in thy teaching. But for them to believe fully in thee, one thing is still needful. Thou must first of all convince us cripples. Here hast thou now a fine selection, and verily, an opportunity with more than one forelock. The blind canst thou heal, and make the lame run, and from him who hath too much behind, couldst thou well, also, take away a little. That, I think, would be the right method to make cripples believe in Zarathustra. Zarathustra, however, answered thus unto him who so spake, When one taketh his hump from the hunchback, then doth one take from him his spirit. So do the people teach. And when one giveth the blind man eyes, then doth he see too many bad things on the earth, so that he curseth him who healed him. He, however, who maketh the lame man run, inflicteth upon him the greatest injury, for hardly can he run when his vices run away with him. So do the people teach concerning cripples. And why should not Zarathustra also learn from the people, when the people learn from Zarathustra? It is, however, the smallest thing unto me, since I have been among men, to see one person lacking an eye, another an ear, and a third a leg, and that others have lost the tongue, or the nose, or the head. I see and have seen worse things, and divers things so hideous that I should neither like to speak of all matters, nor even keep silent about some of them, namely, men who lack everything, except they have too much of one thing, men who are nothing more than a big eye, or a big mouth, or a big belly, or something else big. Reversed cripples I call such men. And when I came out of my solitude, and for the first time passed over this bridge, then I could not trust mine eyes, but looked again and again, and said at last, That is an ear as big as a man. I looked still more attentively, and actually there did move under the ear something that was pitiably small and poor and slim, and in truth this immense ear was perched on a small, thin stalk. The stalk, however, was a man. A person putting a glass to his eyes could ever even recognize further a small, envious countenance, and also that a bloated solet dangled at the stalk. Sorry. The people told me, however, that the big ear was not only a man, but a great man, a genius. But I never believed in the people when they spake of great men, and I hold to my belief that it was a reversed cripple, who had too little of everything and too much of one thing. When Zarathustra had spoken thus unto the hunchback, and unto those of whom the hunchback was the mouthpiece and advocate, then did he turn to his disciples in profound dejection, and said, Verily, my friends, I walk amongst men as amongst the fragments and limbs of human beings. This is the terrible thing to mine eye, that I find man broken up and scattered about, as on a battle and butcher ground. And when mine eye fleeth from the present to the bygone, it findeth ever the same, fragments and limbs and fearful chances, but no men. The present and the bygone upon earth, my friends, that is my most unbearable trouble. And I should not know how to live if I were not a seer of what is to come. A seer, a purposer, a creator, a future itself, and a bridge to the future. And alas, also as it were a cripple on this bridge. All that is Zarathustra. And ye also asked yourselves often, Who is Zarathustra to us? What shall he be called by us? And like me, did ye give yourselves questions for answers? Is he a promiser or a fulfiller? A conqueror or an inheritor? A harvest or a plowshare? A physician or a healed one? Is he a poet or a genuine one? An emancipator or a subjugator? A good one or an evil one? I walk amongst men as the fragments of the future, that future which I contemplate. And it is all my poetization and aspiration to compose and collect into unity what is fragment and riddle and fearful chance. And how could I endure to be a man if man were not also the composer and riddle reader and redeemer of chance? To redeem what is past and to transform it every it was into thus would I have it. That only do I call redemption. Will. So is the emancipator and joy-bringer called. Thus I have taught you, my friends. But now learn this likewise. The will itself is still a prisoner. Willing emancipateth. But what is it that is called which is still putteth the emancipator in chains? It was. Thus is the will's teeth-gnashing and lonesomest tribulation called. Impotent towards what hath been done, it is a malicious spectator of all that is past. Not backward can the will, that it cannot break time and time's desire. That is the will's lonesomest tribulation. Willing emancipateth. What doth willing itself devise in order to get free from its tribulation and mock at its prison? Every fool becometh every prisoner, foolishly delivereth itself also the imprisoned will. That time doth not run backwards, that is its animosity, that which was. So is the stone which it cannot roll called. And thus doth it roll stones out of animosity and ill humor, and taketh revenge on whatever doth not, like it, feel rage and ill humor. Thus did the will, the emancipator, become a torturer, and on all that is capable of suffering it taketh revenge, because it cannot go backwards. This alone is revenge itself, the will's antipathy to time, and it was. Verily, a great folly dwelleth in our will, and it become a curse unto all humanity, that this folly acquired spirit, the spirit of revenge. My friends, that hath hitherto been man's best contemplation, and where there was suffering, it was claimed there was always penalty. Penalty, so calleth itself revenge. With a lying word it feigneth a good conscience. And because in the willer himself there is suffering, because he cannot will backwards, thus was willing itself and all life claimed to be penalty. And then did cloud after cloud roll over the spirit until, at last, madness preached. Everything perisheth, therefore everything deserved to perish. And this itself is justice, the law of time, that he must devour his children. Thus did madness preach. Morally are things ordered according to justice and penalty. Oh, where is there deliverance from the flux of things and from the existence of penalty? Thus did madness preach. Can there be deliverance when there is eternal justice? Alas, unrollable in the stone it was. Eternal must also be all penalties. Thus did madness preach. No deed can be annihilated. How could it be undone by the penalty? This is what it is external in the existence of penalty. That existence also must be eternally recurring deed and guilt. Unless the will should at last deliver itself and willing become non-willing. But ye know, my brethren, this fabulous song of madness. Away from those fabulous songs did I lead you when I taught you the will is a creator. All it was is a fragment, a riddle, a fearful chance, until the creating will saith thereto, but thus would I have it. Until the creating will said thereto, but thus do I will it. Thus shall I will it. But did it ever speak thus? And when doth this take place? Hath the will been unharnessed from its own folly? Hath the will become its own deliverer and joy-bringer? Hath it unlearned the spirit of revenge and all teeth-gnashing? And who hath taught it reconciliation with time and something higher than all reconciliation? Something higher than all reconciliation must the will, which is the will to power. But how doth that take place? Who hath taught it also to will backwards? But at this point in his discourse it chanced that Zarathustra suddenly paused and looked like a person in greatest alarm. With terror in his eyes did he gaze on his disciples. His glances pierced as with arrows their thoughts and rear thoughts. But after a brief space he again laughed and said soothingly, "It is difficult to live amongst men, because silence is so difficult, especially for a babbler." Thus spake Zarathustra. The hunchback, however, had listened to the conversation and had covered his face during the time. But when he heard Zarathustra laugh, he looked up with curiosity and said slowly, "But why does Zarathustra speak otherwise unto us than unto his disciples?" And Zarathustra answered, "What is there to be wondered at? With hunchbacks one may well speak in a hunchbacked way." "Very good," said the hunchback, "and with pupils one may well tell tales out of school. But why doth Zarathustra speak otherwise unto his pupils than unto himself?" And that is where we're going to wrap this one up. We talked about the control systems and how they are to limit you. But they don't really need to, because you limit yourself. We do spend way too much time looking in the past. We're looking at the things that have happened, and many of us are choosing to be depressed. This is a thing that I talk about all the time, and I haven't here yet, but it's definitely the spot for it. Depression is a state, right? When you are actually suffering from depression, you are, in large part, unaware that it is a thing. Someone, a friend, a wife, whoever it happens to be, is like, "Hey, bro, When's the last time you took a bath? Hey, bro, when's the last time you ate something? When's the last time you did some exercise? When's the last time you got out of bed? When's the last time you changed your clothes? When's the last time you cleaned your house? Somebody else has to remind you to do the things of life that are part of life. That is a depressive state. You're unaware that it is a thing. It is merely something that is oppressing you, and you don't even know that it's there. But then comes the moment of revelation that somebody says, hey, bro, when's the last time you took a bath? And you're like, it's been a while. Maybe something's wrong. That is the point of responsibility. At that point, when you know that there is something wrong, that is when you need to seek the help. Sometimes it takes chemical intervention to receive that help. You have to go to a doctor and they have to give you a pill. And that pill will help you to change the chemistry in your mind to a more normal one. That is almost never how it actually goes down. Most of the time you get slightly sad and you go to the doctor and you're like, I'm depressed, and they give you a pill and it changes the chemistry in your mind, but you didn't need your chemistry changed. You needed your mind changed. This hunchback needed his mind changed. I'm a cripple. If you don't know that now. I have problems. I have 13 discs that are messed up. I have 7 bulges, 6 herniations, 3 spinal impingements, spinal meningitis, or spinal stenosis. I have the curvature of the spine. I forget what that's called for some reason right now, but I have problems. It is difficult to walk. It has been difficult to walk for the last better than a decade. 4 years ago, I decided to change my life. I was in a depressive state and I needed something different. So I took charge of my life and I started walking. The first time I started walking, I didn't count it. I walked until I couldn't walk, and by the time I finally put a distance to it and a time to it, I was walking 1 mile in 45 minutes. It was difficult. It was hard. I was pushing myself hard for those 45 minutes. Since then, I have pushed myself hard. Every single day that it is not piss raining outside, I get up every single morning and I push myself. I am now up to 3 miles a day in that same 45 minutes. I needed to change my mind because my mind was convincing me that I was a victim. I have problems. I can't go back into construction. That is not a thing. But I can take these small steps to change my life in a positive manner, and it works. I have manifested healing in my life. Not the full healing of my body. I still have problems. But I don't wake up at a 7 anymore. I wake up at a 6. That's a big improvement, and you may not understand that if you haven't lived in chronic pain, but it really is a big difference between 6 and 7. There's a big difference in the mindset that is holding you back and the actual need for the chemicals. If you are taking these little pills for more than 2 years, your doctor is disserving you. He is not helping you. Whoever they may happen to be, they are not helping you. They are giving you a pill because you requested a pill, and they make money from it. If you truly want to get over whatever it is that is holding you in a depressive state, and this passage was mostly about depression, right? Looking back is depression, looking forward is anxiety. This is about depression, about the things that have happened that I cannot choose. If you're on that pill for more than 2 years, your doctor is not doing you a service. And if you are going back and picking up that baggage from the past, you are not doing yourself a service. The only reason to go back here is to learn how to be better now, so that you can, with your will, say, this is how I say it will be. You can go back in the past and you can pick apart the things. You can go and pick up the bag of sadness. And you can open that bag and you can pull out whatever it was that made you sad. And you can deal with that. And then you need to put that bag down and never pick it up again. And if you catch yourself saying, you know what, that bag looks awfully tempting, say no. Have the self-will to say this is how it will be. And quit worrying about how it's not. Quit worrying about what was. This is what will be. I will this. And don't let the control systems tell you that that's bad. Because they will. They will tell you that if you try to manifest in your life, you're a sinner and you're going to hell. That is one of the control systems. I can guarantee it. But that's not God's will. God wants you to manifest in your life. He gave you the power to do so. I'm telling you how to do it in other playlists. I have done it. It is happening in my life. I am manifesting that which I will. I'm not manifesting that which I want, that which I will. What I want, not what I want. You have the same power. You can change your life, but you have to understand that you are the hunchback. You are the person holding yourself back. You can't stop it if you lose an eye. You can't stop it if you lose an ear. You can't stop it if somebody rear ends you and breaks your back. You can't stop that. But you can go forward from that. And you don't have to go back to that. You don't have to pick up the thing holding you back. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Investigate it. Understand it. Cry about it. Scream about it. Cuss about it. And then let it go. Because that mind, that's where the alchemy needs to happen. Hermes Trismegistus. That's where the mental alchemy comes in. That's where I will this comes in. And you can do that. I have faith in you. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion and possibly a little bit of levity to a series of somewhat complicated topics. I try not to talk about the things that I don't know, but I do try to talk about the things that I do. And this last bit, I know. I have zero doubt that you can do it. I don't doubt it. I know you can. You can say this, I will. And you can make it happen because I am doing it. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks because I am not a communist. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.